Arsenal are an absolute crisis. They've lost 2-1 to Fulham, back-to-back Premier League defeats, while they're trying to win the Premier League title. It's an absolute disgrace, really. They shouldn't be losing these games, and it's really, really poor. That Arsenal side looked devoid of confidence, devoid of any kind of creativity, and even defensively, I think Fulham had a great go at them defensively today and really showed the vulnerabilities in this Arsenal back line. And there are many issues that we will talk about in this video, and obviously we'll break down all the goals. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Just an overview. Arsenal are in a world of pain. This isn't just one of those losses. The City side that won the treble last season lost to Brentford, have lost to Crystal Palace, got beaten. The Centurions lost to Wigan in the FA Cup. So you can lose a game of football, especially away from home, to Fulham. But compounded with a back-to-back loss to West Ham at home as well. I think whether they're home or away, Arsenal are really lacking creativity. The front three are not working for me. Now, obviously, in the first 5 minutes, Martinelli was attacking Fulham very, very well. Gets a nice little shot off, which he hasn't really been doing a lot of in the last few weeks. And obviously, Saka's there to mop up a nice little rebound. From that position, at the start of last year, at the start of even the calendar year a year ago, Arsenal were in the vein of form where they would have kicked on and tried to win that game 4-0. And something just wasn't right. I don't know what it was. I don't know whether they thought they could rest a little bit, whether the fact that they had Eddie Nketiah, Kai Havertz, a couple of players that I think are very, very languid, slow, a little bit cautious at times. They're not dangerous players, the players that I just talked about. And when you're playing against Fulham and you're 1-0 up away from home, you should be trying to tie that one up. Maybe Fulham score and you win it 2-1, but Arsenal should have enough attacking caliber to go on and win that game from a winning position 5 minutes in to the game. Now, obviously, Raul Jimenez gets them back into the game. 20 minutes later? It was a beautiful ball across the face of the box, and Jimenez makes up for what I think Kirill slipped or at least missed the ball, and that is a big, big issue that Arsenal have. Their left back situation is really, really dire. Now, Gabriel and Saliba is a beautiful little defensive partnership. Them with Rice makes this kind of little triangle of real security and strength and athleticism. Obviously, I think fully that Ben White is an absolutely fantastic midfielder, defender that can tuck into midfield, knock things around, and is a very good defender. But on the left-hand side, you have to think about what was the left-hand side proposition for Arsenal in this game. If you're just watching one side of the pitch, the left-hand side for Arsenal, we've got Kirill at left-back, who I don't think is a bad player, but he's not first choice in any regard. And then he's being shifted out to left-back. You've got Kai Havertz playing in that left midfield position. And you've got Martinelli, who I think not many people are talking about. I think he's completely devoid of confidence and completely devoid of all kind of understanding of what he should be doing. When he came through, Martinelli used to be beating men and getting shots off, and he obviously did that in the first 5 minutes. But after that, you think some of the shots that he produced against Fulham, there's one when they're chasing the game and it only went out for a throw-in. You think, what's happened to this guy's confidence? But the Arsenal left-hand side is really soft. It's really poor. The ball that comes across, they couldn't deal with it. Kirill, I think, was a little bit out of position. He should be dealing with that ball every day of the week. So defensively, Arsenal have got 3/4 of a defence. David Raya, was he bad today? No. So I think he's also stabilised in the last few weeks as well. So the left back position for Arsenal is really, really bad, because Zinchenko has been poor in the last few weeks. You feel that any Arsenal mistake, any goal that Arsenal have conceded, it's basically been, Zinchenko's been involved with a losing possession or whatever. I feel like he was guilty against West Ham in particular for some big mistakes and losing the ball at the very minimum, which he's the one player that shouldn't be doing that. He didn't even play against Fulham. And Kirill starts, he's got a lack of mobility. He's got a lack of kind of a quality left foot to link up play. And it showed. So I don't know if you play Kirill as a left back, he's a young centre back, come in, he's being asked to play left back. You need to change up the midfield ahead of him so there's more protection. because Gabriel, Saliba, I think, are good partners to play alongside. You look across the line, you've got Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel. So I think defensively, it's okay in that left-back situation for Arsenal. But the midfield, Declan Rice has got his job. Odegaard's on the far side. You've got Kai Havertz. He's a passenger. When you're struggling, your confidence is bad. The last person you want is Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz he's a chocolate eclair. He's the dessert that you have at the end of a beautiful meal. But you need someone with a bit of steak. You need steak and kidney pie ahead of you if you're Kyrgios. And Kai Havertz isn't that. Now, obviously, Thomas Partey, long-term injury, will be getting back to the side. I think he'll be a massive player, because I think you can play Declan Rice in the Kai Havertz position. Someone like Kyrgios or Zinchenko or whoever it is gets more protection and better link-up play ahead of them, and suddenly Kyrgios can advance. Look at Gvardiol at Man City. He's linking up with Phil Foden. He'll be eventually linking up with Kevin De Bruyne and Rodri. He's come in as a young centre-back, being asked to play left-back. He's not the best left back in the league, but he's getting by in games because he's got so much protection in the midfield ahead of him. I don't think Kyrgios got that, especially when Kai Havertz ahead of you. I mean, is there not a world Jorginho can play in defensive midfield and he played Declan Rice a little bit more advanced? He was actually doing that against Fulham. He was playing nice little balls over the top, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure where we go from that position. Now, obviously, Bobby Reid, Bristol's finest, Easton's finest, gets the winning goal. And it felt like it was coming. I don't think sides fear Arsenal. I think sides realise that they can match them for physicality. There was a moment where Iwobi absolutely smashed Odegaard off the ball. And I think it was nice for him to prove to maybe Arsenal fans that he's a quality player they should maybe not have sold, even though it was decent money, 40 million quid. I think the likes of Bobby Reid, Willian, they matched Arsenal's physicality. So I think all these sides that Arsenal will face, we'll talk about the games coming up for Arsenal at the end of the video. I think all you have to do now is match Arsenal's physicality. When Arsenal were popping at the start of last season, really smashing sides, it was almost inevitable. It was almost like there's nothing we can do here. Especially at the Emirates, there's nothing we can do. Gabby Jesus was in incredible form, being compared to Ian Wright and all sorts. And now all you have to do is match Arsenal's physicality, match their work rate. I think you're going to go a long way in some of these games that are coming up. We have to talk about a moment for Bukayo Saka. Oh, it was grim. The ball gets looped over who was it? Was it Bassi? I think it might have been Bassi getting tied up with Robinson. They both head the ball backwards over to Saka. He has a volley from 8 yards out on his left foot, and he skies it, and you just think, oh, it's so bad. It's really so poor. That is not how a world-class player finishes, and there is a lot of pressure on him. I don't think he's been managed in the right way. On the plus side, on the pros and cons list, if we look at the pros for Saka, doesn't lose the ball a lot, works incredibly hard. His link-up play is subtle and effective, and he does score goals. Not as many. I think he's on less at this point in the season than he was last season. And he plays a lot, and he's consistently very, very good. So those are the pros. The cons for how Bukayo Saka's been managed are actually quite long. He plays every single minute. He plays when Arsenal were 3-0 up. He isn't rested in big games. He was playing in the Europa League last season. I felt like he was playing in Champions League games when Arsenal breezed through their group. Can you not manage his minutes? Hasn't Arteta not learned anything from Guardiola, where Guardiola would manage Phil Foden's minutes, manage Aguero's minutes at the back end of his career, Sterling's minutes, Ruben Diaz last season, his minutes were managed. So at key points in the season, Bukayo Saka should be running games like this. He should be running games. And that shot was really symptomatic of a guy lacking in confidence, lacking in belief. And ultimately, when a player is that, I think, fatigued, I think he's chronically fatigued, you almost just swing at things, and you almost just, that side foot was, you got to lace that, and you got to lace that, and you got to put your foot through it. You really do it. At that distance, trying to side foot it, it's always going to go up, and it's always going to go over the bar. So I think Saka, Martinelli, and then you got Eddie Nketiah. Oh, I don't think he's a top 10 Premier League striker. And some players get caught up in the kind of get caught up in the being at a big club from a young age and getting loaned out and brought back and stuff like that. Is he better than Mbuema at Brentford? Is he better than, Matete that plays at Crystal Palace? I don't think he is. I really don't think he is. So that's it. Let's talk about some of the fixtures. And if you made it this far, make sure you subscribe. Would really appreciate that. Also, Happy New Year to Arsenal fans. Arsenal got Liverpool and the FA. At least it's the FA Cup. There'll be some rotation. Palace at home. I think they'll win that game. I don't think they'll go 3 in a row in the Premier League losing. But suddenly, Forest away, Liverpool at home, West Ham away, Burnley away. They might be honestly scrapping with United, Spurs, Villa, Newcastle, Chelsea for a top 4 finish if things don't go their way. Let's just do some predictions for those games and make sure you leave the comments down below of your predictions. Liverpool at home, I think they'll lose that game. Palace at home, they'll win that just. They'll draw to Forest. They'll draw to Liverpool. They might have 3 draws in a row. I think they'll draw to West Ham and beat Burnley. They're really out of the title race at that point. But let me know your predictions down below. Are Arsenal in crisis? It's a hard one because should they be going on to win the Premier League after what happened last season? There are 2 schools of thought. We'll finish on this point. There are 2 schools of thought. You either get really close to winning the Premier League and then learn about yourself and then kick on. But I think there's a thing in football, especially in Premier League football, where it's so adrenaline based, the atmosphere and the energy and the athleticism needed to be top of the Premier League for so long and then not do it. Look at Liverpool when they nearly won the quadruple. And they get to the next season and they fell off hard. They fell off really hard. And they've got a better manager than Arteta, in my opinion. And they've got someone like Mohamed Salah, who's literally world class. When Saka, Martinelli, I don't think they're world class. And if they fell off, even though they were good the season before, I actually think you'd rather be... if I was Arsenal, I'd rather be 4th, then try and go for 1st. 2nd to 1st can be really hard if your squad is limited. And this Arsenal side are very, very limited. Kyrgios's coming in to replace Zinchenko, who's not good enough for Man City. Reece Nelson was coming off the bench to affect things at Fulham. Reece Nelson, he's not good enough. What Arsenal want? He's a good squad player. He's a fan favourite. I get it. But he isn't good enough. So Arsenal got a lot of problems. I think they need to dip into the January transfer market. They need to get a midfielder, in my opinion. They need to get someone that can play in that defensive midfield position, especially if Partey maybe leaves or whatever happens with him. They need a long-term Declan Rice number 2, or someone that can play alongside Declan Rice. And then 1,000,000% Arsenal need a striker because they could have won this game without being very good against Fulham. City did it literally last season, weren't very good for about 50% of the season, but won nearly every game in that period when Haaland was scoring every game, back-to-back hat-tricks and all sorts. So that's where we are. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But Arsenal have lost back-to-back games in the Premier League.